Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Teach Yourself Foreign Policy Analysis. It's going to be a 12 weeks discussions. And within the 12 weeks, at any time, please do not hesitate to send us an email if you have a question or a suggestion or any other comment for that matter. Welcome to Understanding or Teach Yourself Foreign Policy. And my name is H. Kwame Afaglo. We'll be going through various topics, being foreign policy thinking, that's the introduction to foreign policy. Then realism as a foreign policy. Third week, liberalism as a foreign policy, constructivism as a foreign policy, United Nations, African Union, ECOWAS, NATO, ASEAN, World Trade Organization, NAFTA, and NATO. Okay, I've mentioned NATO already. So those are the topics we'll be dealing with. Today's discussions is titled An Introduction to Foreign Policy. And what would viewers gain from the discussions? Today being the 21st of March 2024. So viewers watching, you gain some few lessons. That is what an explanation to what foreign policy analysis is. What are the foundations of foreign policy analysis? Then foreign policy behavior, understanding it from the external perspective and the internal perspective. Then some examples of foreign policy statements of countries. Then various factors in understanding foreign policy. All right. What is the relationship between foreign policy and international relations? They have one common issue, that's being a nation dealing or relating with other nations. International relations is the same, and foreign policy also is the same. But foreign policy is more of what? A nation dealing with external bodies. So it includes international organizations. And that's what foreign policy is about. Whilst international relations is more of international relations. So it's also got to do with the same international bodies anyway. The other bit is that international relations is an academic work. Meanwhile, foreign policy is better understood from the practitioner's way of thinking and their choices or the decisions they make. Foreign policy has got to do with the practitioners' decisions they make, the understanding to the decisions they make, whilst relating with other organizations. So foreign policy primarily is got to do with what? How nations draft their strategic plan, make choices in relating with other external bodies or external organizations or nations to achieve those goals that they have set for themselves. That is foreign policy. So if you understand how your nation relates with other nations and you start bringing it to the thinking, bringing decisions that they've taken in the past and using that to predict the future, you are likely to be doing what we call analysis, foreign policy analysis. So then those are the issues. The foundation, there are three issues that comes to foundation of foreign policy. The decision-making approach. These are the foundations of foreign policy. The decision-making approach of international policies. How would Ghana, for an instance, relate with the International Monetary Fund when it's gone broke, or when it runs out of its money and it needs extra income? How would Nigeria relate with the United States of America when it's got to do with extraditing a criminal from, or an alleged criminal from Nigeria to the USA? How would Mali deal with having someone repatriated from France to Mali to be tried? Those are issues. Then how would Benin report Nigeria for closing its borders against trade and movement? Those are issues that we'll be looking at as we go along the line. Then, and those comes out of the decision-making approach of foreign policy. Then you would have to understand that aspect of it, of every country, as much as possible. Then what are the theories of foreign policy? We'll look at the theories like liberalism, realism, constructivism, and it helps a lot if you have got those theoretical understanding. Then we have the milieu relationship, the psychosocial milieu relationship. That means trying to draw a hypothesis based on psychology, social understanding, and the situational understanding of a decision of a policy that has to be made in an international environment. For an instance, a country is at United Nations and it has to vote whether there should be a temporary ceasefire in the Middle East as Israel is bombing and killing people of Gaza. Will the country agree? What is the situation when it comes to vote? Like Liberia voted in favor of Israel to continue bombing Gaza. Liberia is not interested in ceasefire. Like the US giving arms to Israel to keep bombing and killing Palestinians, or looking for their terrorists to kill. In the process, they kill a lot of human beings. Ordinary people are being killed. Non-terrorists are being killed. Over 30,000 have been killed by Israeli soldiers, Israeli and then the US soldiers. Okay, so those are all foreign policy issues. So these are the three foundations. So when we discuss it, we're looking at this as a mindset. And the other bit is that we always have to know that foreign policy has two things in common. That is, what are the incentives that makes a practitioner or a foreign affairs minister or an ambassador in another country make a certain decision? What are the incentives and what are the constraints? See, you cannot talk of an incentive without talking of constraints. So when we're looking at foreign policy, we'll be looking at that aspect as well. So then the other bit is we go on to what we have to do today. Then we're looking at, we've done the foundation. That's the 3-point foundation. Then what's the foreign policy behavior? If you watch countries like the United States of America, which we call US, United States for short, they are more of trying to trade. They are more of pushing free market economy. So in most of the decisions they make, it's more free market economy. So you would have to understand that aspect of it. Once you keep determining those patterns, that's liberalism, continuously and is consistent, then that is it. You should follow me. That's their behavior. If once a while they mess up, you would understand. So you would have to get the behavior, foreign policy behavior of each country, and especially of your country that you are watching. For an instance, Ghana has a very interesting foreign policy where, as of now, they are aligned towards the West, forgetting that in their intention, they are supposed to be non-aligned. But we'll get there. The other bit is, in that behavior, it should either be consistent or one-off change should be seen. Or you do nothing at all, like Switzerland. You do nothing at all. So those are all foreign policy behaviors. That's how you understand it. If you build a data of decisions that has been taken over time. And most of these decisions you can get through bilateral relationships and then multilateral relations and international bodies like United Nations, WTO, World Trade Organization, and co. So then it goes a long way to look at what? The foreign policy behavior. We are saying, look, the behavior, you have to look at it on two fronts. What is the external behavior of the country in relation with other bodies? What do you need to understand? That is, build the data, draw a certain pattern, then it's consistent. If it's not consistent, you will see. Then it's a behavior. That's the external aspect. The internal part, that's also equally important. If you want to understand how a nation thinks before it makes its strategic choice in dealing with another nation or an international organization, then you would have to look internally. You have to look at how they think politically. You have to look at their political systems. What are the groups in there? How do they think? What are the small groups in there? So you're looking at actor general and actor specific. The actor, the main actors, the main actor general. The main actor general is just all the groups together. The actor specific may be the foreign affairs minister, for an instance. How he or she thinks, what is his philosophy, or the president's philosophy, or the political party's philosophy for that matter that they use for international relations. So those are the issues of actor general and actor specific. You need to get down internal to that country and understand it. Sometime in 1904, thereabout 1904, Sir Crowley of the UK asked that the UK, he was then the international diplomat in Germany, and he said, look, UK should look at the understanding of Germany and their foreign policy very well. Look at the actors within. Get to know their thinking because they are forced to reckon with. Sometime in 18, after the Crimea War, France and Britain actually requested that they should look at Russia carefully because it was a power block that was coming up after the Crimea War, way back in 1874 thereabout. I'm not too sure of the year, but the 19th century. So that was a foreign policy analysis that they needed to look at, and that helped a lot. Okay, that said and done, let's go for a break and then we'll come in and look at some of the foreign policy statements of various nations and analyze it. Yeah, welcome back to Introduction to Foreign Policy Analysis. At this stage, we're now going to look at some of the examples of foreign policy statements of some countries, and then we'll look at it just briefly to aid us into the future weeks or the few weeks ahead that we can make more meaning to. For instance, the foreign policy of the United States of America, it says what? Promoting freedom and democracy and protecting human rights around the world are central to the U.S. foreign policy. Question you now have to notice is what? Promoting freedom and democracy. So U.S. wants to promote democracy in each dealing with any organization or any country for that matter. That is one thing that U.S. is always looking for. And they want to protect human rights. Protecting of human rights about what? The right to life, right to work, right to education, blah, blah, blah. Those are some fundamental human rights. Right to express your views. Okay. So then we question ourselves. So those rights and democracy are fine, but is it compulsory that every country must accept democracy? Are we all to think the same way? That is the way they want us to do. But is that going to be possible? Do we have a unipolar world as of today, 2024? No, we have a bipolar world. Where Russia is there, it's not only Russia, China, Russia, and Korea, North Korea are the TriStar, another power bloc. And of course, the United States, which is also power block. So then, how do they protect? Do they really protect human rights around the world? I'm not too sure. They have been an international police, but with some worse records, some very worse records. They take to war with other nations, and when they do that, they kill a lot of civilians. I've mentioned that Israel, they're supporting Israel by arming Israel, and then taken to flight to bomb some places in Gaza so that Israel can continue the killing of the people of Gaza in their search for Hamas terrorists. They have killed over 30,000 civilians, non-combatants, those who are not carrying weapons at all. They've killed over 30,000 and displaced over 240,000 people. See, that is the USA. So there is this issue that there is a question mark. So you have the statement, but do they really do what they claim to do? Is it in foreign policy, we are analyzing what they are doing, not what they intend to do, what they will do in future. Take note, foreign policy analysis is got to do with what they are doing now or what they've done in the past, not what they will do in the future or what they intend to do. So following that, the foreign policy analysis, we're realizing that no, protecting human rights by the United States is questionable. So it comes with one fundamental rule in foreign policy analysis. That is the nation state takes precedence over ethics. The nation state takes precedence over ethics. And if that be the case, it means that foreign policy analysis or foreign policy is not necessarily an academic work, because in academic work, ethics takes precedence in most of the topics. But here in foreign policy, no, the state takes precedence over ethics. And that's why we say it's a practitioner's discipline. All right. Then when it comes to foreign policy, so the US, for instance, would abuse human rights and state that they are protecting human rights, but they go out abusing human rights. What did they not do to Panama? Panama had one former leader who was picked to the United States of America. His Manuel Noriega. In 1990, Noriega was picked from Panama and sent to the USA and tried and jailed. Then from there, after serving some time, he was sent to France to be jailed there too. I mean, is this how to protect human rights of other countries whilst relating with them? No, I'm not sure. So US has to look at some of these things. They are not being factual when it comes to their foreign policy. So they are putting their nation state interest above ethics. Okay, when you look at Ghana, maintaining foreign relations and cooperation with all countries that desire such cooperation, irrespective of ideological consideration on the basis of mutual respect and non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Ghana goes to the United Nations and votes in favor of the West. Votes in favor of the West, but says that it's non-aligned. It doesn't look for ideological differences. Is that true? No. So in reality, Ghana is also following that same foreign policy analysis that the nation state takes precedence to ethics. They say one thing and are doing another. Okay, look at China's foreign policy. It says so peaceful coexistence and mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. Yes, it's true. Peaceful coexistence. No wonder China doesn't seem to like to go to war. Meanwhile, they sometimes want to go to war. They threaten war against a country like Hong Kong. They are making sure that Hong Kong does not get its own statehood and being recognized at the United Nations as a nation or as a country. Okay, so that is also another issue. It's the same thing. States or nation precedes or supersedes ethics. See, that's one thing with foreign policy that you notice. Israel is even more classical. According to their foreign policy, it says promoting world peace, ending of aggression and war, relaxation of tension between states and blocs. It says what? The government will steadfastly strive to attain a lasting peace with Israel's neighbors, founded on peace treaties and resulting from direct negotiations between parties. What is Israel doing in Gaza as of today, March 2024? Since October 2023, they started killing the people of Gaza. They've killed over 25,000 innocent people, civilians who are not armed, just because they are looking for some few Hamas terrorists. And that is their foreign policy. Foreign policy and ethics. Foreign policy of a state supersedes the ethics. And that's one thing that we always must have in mind when we are relating with other nations. Okay, on our scheme of work, or what we intend to achieve, now that we've looked at some few examples of foreign policy statements, let's look at the various factors of foreign policy. It is helpful in the sense that, see, it gives us the thinking and the actions that follow, the strategic choices that are made by nations when they are dealing with other external entities. For instance, one of the factors is going to be what? Cognitive process. That's the learning and thinking of that society. If you take Niger, for an instance, Niger has a lot of resources, have signed contracts with France mining companies for 20% royalties of their own minerals. And France, the French company, takes majority. Then, of course, their worth or their budget is written by France, and their resources is kept in the Central Bank of France. Their monetary resources is kept by the Central Bank of France. That is done because of the cognitive process. Franco-African relations has been driven on assimilation for centuries now. So for Niger to take to a coup d'etat and want France out of that country, and they even want to change the language France, they want to abandon it, they want it kicked out of that country, is because of the cognitive process. They have gotten to the awakening level that in dealing with France as a nation, they are not achieving their goal. They are being abused, subjugated, which is what they are. Mali, same way. Burkina Faso, same way. Guinea, same. And then Gabon, same. These countries have realized that their thinking, cognitive process, their thinking needs to change. So in foreign policy, you look at what's happening internally. The military have taken over. They want to fight. They are subjugating. They want true economic independence. So you understand them. Okay, then you look at another factor is the leader personality orientation. Leaders make their personality makes a lot of international relations, makes up a lot of foreign policy decisions and foreign policy choices. For instance, the leader of Ghana, the first president of Ghana, that is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he was instrumental in the establishment of African Union because it believes that Africans must have their own unique set of policy and must seek for their own hegemony. Hegemonic stability theories will get there. All right. Patrice Lumumba of Democratic Republic of Congo was not any different. Very knowledgeable person and was teaching his people as a prime minister. But he was taken out quickly by the Belgians. And Dr. Nkrumah was taken away by the British and the United States because they were all giving out their personalities, and their dictates were contrary to democratic tenets. This is what foreign policy does. So they took them out. All right. Small group dynamics, like civil society movements, how do they think? You find out internally how they think, because that's important in understanding foreign policy of the nation. Okay, then is there an interface between the leader and then the small groups? For an instance, Vladimir Lenin, who introduced communism into Russia, he and then his Revolutionary Vanguard Party did establish communism in Russia and made sure that they educated the people so well. He had a good interface between his party and himself. So communism lasted for a long time, though it didn't last as long as democracy is thriving. But how long will democracy thrive is another question. Okay, so then organizational process. Organizational process itself of foreign policy is important. When foreign policy practitioners sit and discuss issues before they go to vote or before they make inputs into discussions at roundtable discussions, what is their thinking? Because the president is not going to be there, but he has every country has foreign policy analysts and foreign ministers and ambassadors who does those thinking. They sit as a group and they think. All right, what are the bureaucratic processes? The ambassadors, are they given various rules? Are some placed on priority than others? It's all depending on the foreign policy of the country. Foreign policy means that the nation has a strategic plan that it has to achieve when it is in a relationship with another nation or another external entity, for that matter. So if its interest is more in trading with China, where it makes surplus, like Libya will trade with China and place emphasis on whoever they are going to send to deal with China, a high caliber person, very knowledgeable in the way they think, as compared to Libya trading with Europe, where they don't make surplus. The rest of Africa don't make surplus trading with China. It's only Libya that makes surplus, trade surplus. The rest always run at a deficit. Yet they are still trading with China. God knows why, I don't know. Okay, then you're looking at the culture and foreign policy of that country, the identity and the nationalism that there is in that country. The country, see, their nationalistic hold. For instance, Gabon, the people are so Gabonese that they want their independence, they want their economic independence because they've got the political independence, but they want the economic independence that Oman Bongo and Ali Bongo, that family that has ruled them for decades, had to go. Togo has not been able to establish that aspect because the Nyansigbes, Father Nyansigbe and San Nyansigbe are still ruling them. And they have to think, if their cultural identity is strong and nationalism is strong, it will move the Nyansigbes out finally. For over 30 years, they've been there. Because you need to understand it in dealing with them. Okay, so then domestic political context. Does the country have a multi-party system, or is a single party system? Like China is a one-party state. But they are progressing very, very fast. They had a superpower in the world, but we're looking into the future, they will be the topmost country. Okay. They'll supersede or override United States of America in a few years from now, if they have not already. Okay, so those are issues that you look at. Then the ideological component of the political parties. For an instance, in Ghana, we had Nkrumah, who was more tilted towards, who was non-aligned but more Eastern oriented. Then we had the UGCC that was more pro-West. So then the pro-West people aided US and UK to overthrow Dr. Nkrumah, who was inclined towards the East and more non-aligned. He played a lot of role in the founding of African Union and then non-aligned. But the West, and they arranged with an internal organization as UGCC and got him out. And those some military folks. Okay, so you need to understand those in foreign policy. Then now you can point out that the US and France, US and United Kingdom, if you are not democratic, they want to get you out as a foreign policy. They are foreign policy, but they say they are what? Protecting human rights in their foreign policy. Okay, national attributes is also another. What are the attributes, the resources you have in a nation? Are they protecting the resources, or they are giving it out, dishing it out? For an instance, most African countries are highly resource endowed. Yet the contracts they are signing out to those who are extracting the resources are just so poor that some are getting as low as 10% royalty, like Ghana, whilst others are getting as high as 25% in other African countries. We wait when an African country gets a 50% share of its own resources that's being mined, then we know that that country has arrived. 50% and more, then we know that country has arrived. Are they going to process it in that country to a final product and sell from that country? If they do that, yes, then we know that it's a done deal. The African country is going to be wealthy, because resource-rich countries mostly tend to be poor countries. Resource-rich countries tend to be poor countries. That is strange. That is the irony of this whole thing. So when you are dealing in foreign policy, you must understand that if your country is resource-rich and dealing with another country, sign good contracts such that you kick out poverty. The systems must be well known. You need to understand the global system, that is it a bipolar system or is it a unipolar or multipolar? As of today, 2024, we have a bipolar system again. Prior to 2009, 2010, we had a unipolar where United States was moving around the world and cracking heads all over the place. That's what it wants to any other nation, under the guise of what? Foreign policy, and wants every country to democratize, doing all sorts of things, establishing military bases in Africa. There are more US soldiers on the soil of Africa than any one African country's military. That is the US foreign policy when it was a unipolar world. But today that we are entering a bipolar world again, with the tri-star, that's China, Russia, and North Korea, their presence will gradually be reduced with the coup d'etats happening in some of the countries, especially the coup d'etat belt in West Africa. All right, so multipolarism is likely to come, because we also have to study BRICS. It will come up to front. So generally, this is just an introduction to what foreign policy analysis we'll be looking at, and we're going to go into details. The name is H. Kwame Afaglu. Thank you. If you have any question, don't hesitate to send to the email or the WhatsApp number above. Thank you.